Hey, David Brewster here with the 3 for All, and this is 3 Stevie Ray Vaughan licks from 1986. And Stevie Ray Vaughan, of course, is the late great guitar legend, and I just did a chord play, kind of tribute to Stevie Ray Vaughan. Now we're going to look at some of his licks and phrases, and there's a ton of things you can learn from tapping into his guitar style, learning some of his music, some of his slick riffs and licks and tricks. And definitely one big thing you're going to pick up from studying and working through some of Stevie Ray Vaughan's music is playing with conviction and feel and accenting things in a very specific way and hitting the strings hard and digging in. And these are things that a lot of blues guitarists kind of take for granted, and then rock and metal guitarists, they learn a little bit about blues, but they don't realize a lot of it is that connected kind of energy, hitting the strings and really expressing yourself in a very kind of percussive and aggressive way. And for rock and metal guitarists, they're used to playing aggressively, but in blues music, definitely people like Stevie Ray Vaughan, the approach is different. There's kind of tension and release, there's tense moments, and then this kind of relaxed kind of feel. So it comes and goes. It's not always aggressive. If it was always aggressive, it'd be more like metal. It's kind of passive aggressive, you know what I mean? And it's interesting. So this lesson is going to be very different than most of the 3 for All lessons I've made. And there are video clips that are going to go along with some of these licks, but we're going to be talking more about how we're playing some of these ideas more than actually kind of, zooming in and really noticing what we're specifically playing, because some of these ideas are very simple, but it's the way you're going to play them that's the kind of important thing. If you like Stevie Ray Vaughan, or if you're kind of getting into his playing and his music, the home video, Stevie Ray Vaughan live at the El Macambo, I can't emphasize or stress it enough. I mean, that video is gold. And I know the first time I ever saw it, I was familiar with Stevie Ray. We rented it. I think it was like at a Blockbuster or something. I was in college. We put that on and I was blown away. I sat there, my mouth was wide open. I watched it. I went to bed that night. I was so confused. I thought, what did I just see? And we kept that video because we rented it. We kept that video for a week. We had late charges or whatever. I couldn't let go of it. I was like, no, I don't want to take that back yet. I want to watch it again. And there's just so much going on in that video. It's live. It's early in his career. Stevie Ray is on fire. He's playing behind his head. He's throwing his guitar on the ground. He does Voodoo Child, he does Lenny, he does all the, the classics. But he is just ferocious. Just, like a flamethrower. It's so impressive and it's so inspiring. And when you see that video, you can't help but pick up your guitar and try to figure out, like, how did he make the guitar sound like that? And it's the tone, but it's the approach too, the phrasing, the way he's putting it all together. And that's some of what this lesson's going to talk about. The first thing we're going to tap into here is talking about playing with attitude. And that's a very important thing. If you're going to try to channel or tap into some of Stevie Ray Vaughan's music, you have to play everything with a certain level of attitude, or it's just not going to sound right. And I did find this kind of Soundcheck with Stevie Ray from 1986. And he's wearing like a fur coat. It's obviously, they're doing a sound check, so you can tell he's kind of moving in slow gear. And then at one point, they start kind of jamming, and he starts playing this, and it's just the same thing, but he plays it, a dozen times or 24 times. He just keeps playing that same lick like this. We're going to start there. Very simple. It's one double stop and then 2 single notes. So what I'd recommend is when you hit that double stop and you add that vibrato, really dig in and pick hard. I'm not picking super duper hard, but I'm hitting the strings pretty hard right there. The next thing we're going to talk about as far as playing with attitude, and it comes from the same Soundcheck, is it's a very simple lick. You know, once again, it's not hard. But he's playing basically a half step bend and then a whole step bend. And he starts on this B. This is over the key of A too, by the way. So he's kind of bending this B up to a C and then up to a C sharp. And then he grabs the C and bends it up to a C sharp and then a D. Then he grabs C sharp, bends that up to D and then D sharp. And he grabs this D, bends that up to D sharp and then E. And then he ends up just grabbing that D, bending to E until he finishes the phrase with this little kind of Albert King move. But it's something like this. So what I want you to do is really dig in, you know? And really make those last, you know, the last bend and those last two notes really pop. You know, that part. But the trick there is really just you're digging in, you're pushing, you know, and fretting hard, and you're also picking that high E string super hard. Next up we have a turnaround lick, and definitely Stevie Ray loved playing turnarounds. And this one's kind of unusual, but it looks like this. So right there we're sliding into this A note, but you're not really fretting it fully. You're just kind of sliding up, and then as soon as you get around that A, then play the high E string open. Something like that. Grab this double stop here on the 4th and 3rd fret on the G and the B. So you're going to grab that double stop, grab this double stop like kind of an A, and then you're going to do a hammer-on pull-off, that open G to the A, the open G. After you grab that E note there on the 2nd fret on the D, pop that high E string open again. And then walk up G, A sharp to B. Like that. Something like that. But up next we're going to uncover what I like to call pentatonic hotspots. And this is something that Stevie Ray Vaughan did, but I mean Clapton, Van Halen, Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, there's a ton of guitarists that have also done this. David Gilmour for sure, you know, from Pink Floyd. But the pentatonic hotspots, basically we're going to find these areas within kind of a mapped pentatonic scale on the neck. And you can kind of find these licks and phrases and solos, you know, from Stevie Ray Vaughan and other players that come right out of these shapes. So we're in E or E7, and the first one's going to be right here. So there I'm just sliding that A into B. Just worried about the G, the B, and the high E right there. I mean, there's the pentatonic position. But we're really just worried about this part. And that's also known as the Albert King box. Albert loved soloing out of that shape. And definitely Stevie Ray Vaughan, you know, was obsessed with Albert King. So that's the first shape. Now the second shape, after we've kind of got to know that one, the next shape's going to basically flirt with the B.B. King box right here. So it's a little different than the one we just had. Really good shape to know. Alright, so there's 1, 2. Now the third third shape, we're going to move all the way up here, and now we're going to basically be in this position of E minor pentatonic. You know, you can think of that as shape 4. But we're just worried about this part right there, you know, on the high E, B, and G. There's another shape we could play with right there, but usually, you know, Stevie didn't really play with that one that much. He just jumped ahead to the box right there. So think of E minor pentatonic, but we're just worried about the G, B, and high E once again. And then if you go up just a little bit higher, we're basically where we started, you know, with the Albert King box. But we're an octave higher. And here's a bonus lick, and this is basically during this live, you know, kind of guitar lesson with Stevie Ray, and he starts talking about Hideaway. And I did talk about the Freddie King kind of version, you know, in the chord play episode that I just made. But now he mentions Eric Clapton, and he plays it like this. And the important thing there is just the expression, you know, like the way he's grabbing the notes and bending. You know, he's grabbing that F sharp and bending it up to a G sharp, but it's the way he's phrasing, you know, within that little jam or the context of what he's talking about there. Also hear like a little bit of, you know, handling noise right there, you know, that kind of thing. Now some guitarists might think, oh, that's a mistake, or I don't want that sound in there, but the handling noise is important, especially for somebody like, you know, Stevie Ray Vaughan, you know, very expressive, a lot of emotion and energy and things like that. But some of those little noises, I mean, you can hear Hendrix making noises like that, of course Stevie Ray Vaughan, and tons of other guitarists too. So sometimes that kind of extra noise or just some of the handling noise that you hear really kind of adds to the phrasing and to the music that you're hearing. And I just like the way, you know, he was kind of talking about Clapton, but then he just started whipping out these phrases and kind of mixing, you know, the rhythm part with some of the lead parts. And that's something you could definitely experiment with, you know, play a little bit of that boogie rhythm, play a couple bars of a solo or a lead, you know, some licks, and then go back to the rhythm and kind of mix and match.
Clapton does it like this.
Alright, that's going to wrap this episode of 3 for All with 3 Stevie Ray Vaughan licks from 1986. And like I mentioned at the beginning, this is a little different than some of the 3 for All lessons I've made because we weren't really shredding and we weren't really playing these crazy, you know, string skips or taps or whatever, sweeping. You know, it's phrasing and picking and kind of, you know, really digging in and kind of, you know, organizing, you know, what you're playing, whether it's string bending or some melodic phrasing or something like that, some double stop bends or whatever they might be. You know, it's really important to kind of hone in and really look and be precise and be critical. You know, like, could I play this better? Or could I play it differently? And, you know, some of it's tone, but some of it's also just the handling, you know, of the guitar, how hard you're picking, how hard you're fretting or digging in. And you can kind of create some of these really, you know, expressive and dynamic sounds. So anyway, leave some feedback and some comments. Please subscribe to Late Night Lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content and material. Thank you.